Hare Krishna. So I'd like to take blessings from Mother Kulangana and other senior devotees present here before I discuss this subject matter. So beginning today we are talking about a series of 3 lectures on lessons from the life of Shripad Madhavendra Puri, and we are discussing from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 4, which is entitled Madhavendra Puri's Devotional Service. So in this chapter, it is explained that when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took sannyas, he left for Jagannath Puri on the request of his mother Sachi instead of going to Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go to Vrindavan. Mother Sachi said that Vrindavan was very far and therefore you kindly go to Jagannath Puri. She said Jagannath Puri and Mayapur are like 2 rooms in the same house. So devotees from Puri will keep coming to Mayapur, and she said, I'll keep getting news about you. So on her request, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu marched towards Jagannath Puri, and on his way to Jagannath Puri, he came to Remuna. In Remuna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited this temple of Khirchor Gopinath, and he took darshan of the most beautiful deity of Gopinath. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu along with his followers came to this temple, the head pujari, he came and offered Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the garland. Jai Shri Radha Gokulanand ki, Jai Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Jai Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Jai. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and offered obeisances to the deity of Gopinath, the helmet of flowers which was there on the head of the deity fell on the head of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, chanted in the temple and waited. He decided to spend a night in that temple. And the reason he decided to spend a night in that temple is he had heard the glories of prasad of Gopinath, of the sweet rice, the kheer that is offered to this particular deity of Gopinath. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there for the first time. He had never been to Remuna before. He had never seen this deity of Gopinath before. The first time he was seeing this deity, the first time he was coming to Remuna, how did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu know about all these things? Of course, someone might say he's God. Someone might say Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God, he is Krishna, and therefore he knew about the deity, he knew about the famous prasad, he knew about the place. But if we take Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu simply as a devotee and a sannyasi, then how did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu know about the glories of this deity in Remuna? And that's the verse we are reading today. Mahaprabhu kshira lobhe, rahila prabhu tatha, kshira lobhe. Out of intense greed for that kheer, for that prasad, he stayed there in Remuna. How did he know about it? Purve, in the past. Ishvara Puri, tare kahiya chen katha. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had heard from his spiritual master Ishvara Puri about this deity, he knew about the glories of this deity. And therefore, the first lesson from this chapter is the power of hearing. One can only understand, one can only appreciate the deity, one can only appreciate Krishna consciousness from the process of hearing. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could appreciate Khirchor Gopinath, although he had not seen this deity, although he had not been to this place, because he had previously heard from his spiritual master Ishvara Puri about the glories of Khirchor Gopinath, Remuna, and the famous prasad of kheer there. Of course, we hear a lot about prasad, and we know about the glories of prasad where we go there. Whether we know about the glories of the deity or not, we don't know. But definitely, different devotees travel to India and they'll tell us, when you go to Jagannath Puri, make sure you eat the Chhenna Poda. Chhenna Poda is a cheesecake. In our Chopati ashram at a point of time, all the brahmacharis decided, oh, we are celebrating birthdays of the brahmacharis and we are having cakes, but these are Western cakes. Let's have some traditional cakes. So they did research and they found that Jagannath Puri is famous for cheesecake, not the cheesecake like here. They use the paneer and they bake it in a wood-fired oven, and that's called Chhena Poda. So whether are we known of the glories of Jagannath or not, we've heard or not, we don't know. But we definitely have heard that Puri, Chhena Poda. Make sure. Purve devotees kohiya chen katha. They have told us the katha. And we've heard about the glories of Chhena Poda. And if you come to Bhaktivedanta Manor, then when I go back to India, I say, when you come there, it's very famous for Mother Kulangana sweets, Mangalarti sweets, and the Gokul sweets. So whether or not we know anything else, Bhaktivedanta Manor is very famous in India. Not so much to George Harrison, yes, and the deities, yes, but it's more famous for the prasad, the Mangalarti sweets. Very, very famous. And therefore, hearing is a very powerful process. Hearing opens our eyes. Hearing wakes us up and makes us appreciate what we have in front of us. I was telling at Buckland Hall that a husband and a wife, they had fight amongst each other. They fought. It happens many times. They just fought. And after fighting, they decided not to talk to each other at all. Not a single word. And the next morning, the husband had to take a flight because he had to go somewhere on a business tour. So he was not talking with his wife. So he just wrote on a chit message, "Wake me up at 4 a.m. tomorrow." So fine, wake me up. She read it. Next morning, he got up at 7 o'clock. He missed his flight, obviously. And because he had missed his flight, now he was so upset, he started shouting at his wife, "What do you think you are?" Now he was speaking, but fighting and chastising. "What do you think you are? I told you, wake me up." She told me. She didn't say anything. She just pointed to a slip which was posted on the wall. "It is 4 o'clock, wake up." So when there was a slip given, "Wake me up at 4," she also wrote, "It is 4, wake up." No one wakes up by seeing. No one wakes up by seeing. When someone has to wake up, hearing is essential. And therefore alarm clocks are all around us, hearing. And here was the wife, she did not wake him up. Just put a chat. Okay, wake up, it is 4 o'clock. Hearing is a very, very powerful process to wake up. Sound makes a person wake up from the deepest slumber of ignorance. In Bombay, when they had this terrorists come in at the famous Taj Mahal hotel, the Hotel Taj, and there was a lot of terrorist activities going on. Several people were shot dead. Next morning, when all the shooting subsided and there was police all over the hotel, one man came out of the room. Peacefully, he was in the room. Everyone was removed from the hotel. He was peacefully there in the room. He came out of the room and he asked the police people, "Oh, why there's no breakfast today? Why there's no breakfast today?" The policeman said, "Wait a minute, hang on, what happened? You don't know what happened?" So, "Well, I absolutely have no clue of what happened." He said, "How come?" This man, he was a man who was impaired in his hearing and he would use hearing aids. So before the shootout happened that evening, this man went into his room, peacefully removed his hearing aids and rested. And there was massive chaos going on around, bombs and guns and machine guns, shooting happening. But this man peacefully slept, very peacefully relaxed because his hearing aids weren't there. And next morning when he put his hearing aids on, of course the shooting was all over, and he came out and said, "No breakfast today." He never knew what was happening around him for one simple reason. Hearing was not on. And therefore, hearing is a very, very powerful and important process which makes us appreciate what goes on around us, what happens around us. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that a person learns to see by the process of hearing. Shrute kshita. Shruta means to hear. Ikshita means to see. One does not see by seeing. One sees by hearing. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the deity of Gopinath in Remuna, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was now taking darshan of Gopinath. He could appreciate that deity, he could appreciate that place, he could appreciate that prasad, because he had heard. Purve Ishwara Puri Tare Kahi Achen Katha. In the past he had heard from Ishwar Puri the glories of that place and the glories of that prasad, the glories of that deity. So he had appreciation for that deity. And thus, when one comes in front of the deity, one can only appreciate the deity when one has heard. If one is engaged in the process of hearing and chanting, then one can take proper darshan. Then one can appreciate that deity. When one goes to a holy place and simply sees the deity in the holy place, one can never get full advantage. One can only derive full advantage of the deity and the holy place if one has heard from devotees. Then one can appreciate what is available in those holy places. Once Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he was giving a talk, and as he was giving a talk, one man entered into the temple, and he came and he stood in front of the deity. And as he was taking darshan, the class was over. As this man was leaving, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called him and said to him, "So, how was your eye massage?" And that was something unique. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of this concept called the eye massage. You can massage the feet, and one can massage the body, one can massage the head. What was his eye massage? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked him, "How was your eye massage?" This man was stunned. He said, "What do you mean?" Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur replied and said, eye massage meaning, just like you get a massage for the hands and the legs, and the hands and the legs feel tremendous pleasure and enjoyment. So you're using the deity to give a massage to your eyes. You use a masseur to give massage to the hands and the legs and the head, and one goes and takes darshan of the deity so that the deity can give massage to the eyes, which means pleasure to the eyes, enjoyment to the eyes. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "Here am I talking about Krishna. Instead of hearing about the glories of the Lord, you're going and standing in front of the altar taking darshan. First hear. First listen to the glories of the Lord. Only when you hear about the glories of the Lord can one actually appreciate the deity," Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told him. And then while on one parikrama in Vrindavan, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was giving a talk, and one sannyasi came and announced. He said, now there is a facility for devotees to go and take darshan of the Kshirodakshayi Vishnu temple. Many left. And Srila Prabhupada, who was Abhay Babu then, he sat there. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw that Abhay is still sitting, and later he took note of that and said, "This Abhay Babu, he likes to hear. And because he likes to hear, he can preach." Many went to see the deity of Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, but how many would appreciate what is the deity? But many sat and heard from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, from the spiritual master, and because they heard, they could appreciate the beauty of the Lord. They could appreciate the form of the Lord. Therefore the Padma Purana explains, "Arche Vishnu Shiladhir." If one goes to the deity and simply sees the deity, one will see Shila. Shila means a stone. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, there is Badam Bhangi Shaligram. Shaligram Shila is meant to be worshipped. It's the Lord. But many times, pujaris in Bengal, people would come and give badam, almonds, as offering to the Shaligram Shila. And they would take all the almonds, and instead of offering it to the Shaligram Shila, they would use the Shaligram Shila to crack the almond. Not the almonds that are free. The almonds come sometimes within the casing. So they would use this Shaligram Shila, which is like a stone, to crack the covering of the almond and eat those almonds. Badam Bhangi Shaligram, where you use the Shaligram to crack the almonds and take the almond and eat it, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. So if one goes and simply sees the deity, one will see a stone, Shila, and one will commit an offense thinking this is a Shila. But when one hears from the spiritual master, when one hears from the devotees, Shravanam, then one will appreciate that this is not a Shila, this is Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came to Remuna, he didn't see that as a stone standing there. A food purifying machine. Like we have water purifying machines, water purifiers, reverse osmosis plants. So then deity sometimes becomes as a food purifier. Put the food, bhoga, prasad comes free from karma. You know, the deity can become a food purifying machine. And sometimes even that is not needed. Sometimes even that food purifying is not needed. The simplistic formula is Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. In the mind, just offering in the mind. We don't even need that many times. And therefore, the deity in the temple can become a galagraha, Srila Prabhupada said. Rather than being an archa vigraha, it can become a galagraha, a burden made of stone. Srila Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had heard from Ishwara Puri the glories of Gopinath in Remuna, and therefore when he came there, he could appreciate Gopinath, he could appreciate Remuna, he could appreciate the Mahaprasad Kheer for which he stayed in Remuna that night. And thus, the process of appreciating the Lord and the deity is the process of hearing. Not just the deity, even devotees. If we do not hear about devotees, if we do not hear about the glories of devotees, we will take devotees cheaply. Vaishnavanam jati buddhir. Just like one takes a deity cheaply, if he has not heard sufficiently, one will take the devotees cheaply if one has not heard the glories of the devotees. When Prahlad was in the womb of his mother Kayadu, Indra and all the demigods had come to the palace of Hiranyakashipu. They had kidnapped Kayadu and they were taking Kayadu away, dragging Kayadu away. And at that time Narad Muni came there. Narad Muni asked Indra and all the other demigods, "Where are you taking Kayadu?" Said, "Oh, in the womb of Kayadu is the child of the demon Hiranyakashipu. And because he is the child of Hiranyakashipu, he is definitely a demon. We want to kill him. But we will wait till he is born. We do not want to kill the child while he is in the womb. We can do that. We have the ability. We have the power to kill the child while he is in the womb without harming Kayadu. Without having to harm Kayadu, Indra and all of these personalities were special abortion specialists. They could have very well killed the fetus in the womb. They could have very well killed Prahlad. And Srila Prabhupada explains, they did not. They did not. They wanted to kill the child, but not in the womb. They waited. They said, we'll wait. We'll wait till this child is born and then we'll kill the child. Narad Muni said, why do you want to kill the child? Even if you want to wait till he is born, why do you want to kill the child? The demigods explained, because he is the child of Hiranyakashipu. Since he is a child of Hiranyakashipu, he is definitely a demon. We don't want to spare him. One Hiranyakashipu is, tough time to handle. And what to speak of if there's another born through him, we don't want to take a chance. Narad Muni said, no, don't kill him. Prahlad, who's a child in the womb, Prahlad, he's a great devotee, a Mahabhagavat, a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. He's not a demon. Just because he's born of Hiranyakashipu does not mean he's Hiranyakashipu. He's a great devotee of the Lord. Do not kill. Indra and all the other demigods did not think twice. They offered their obeisances to Narad Muni. They circumambulated Kayadu, considering Prahlad in the womb to be a devotee, and left. They hadn't seen. Did they see Prahlad? They didn't have a sonograph then. There was no sonography that they could put the sonograph and see. And by a sonograph you can at best what would you see? Whether it's a male child or a female child, and it's an offense to do so. I don't know how it's in England. In India it's a legal offense. Sex determination of the child using a sonograph. Right? Even if there was a sonograph, what would Indra and others see in the womb of Kayadu? They would only see that the child is a male or a female child. Could they detect that the child is a devotee? No. There was no way they could see the child in the womb and detect what the child is. But they heard. They heard from an authority, Narad Muni. They heard about the child in the womb, and this child is not an ordinary child. This child is not a demon. This child is a devotee. Indra and all the demigods, please do not assume Please do not assume. Someone who comes to the temple and sees the deity will assume, what is this? A murti made of stone, a murti made of brass, a murti made of wood. Assumption that this is simply a idol. One of our devotees in Chopati gives a seminar, idol worship or ideal worship. And in order to understand whether it's idol worship or ideal worship, one has to hear. When one hears from an authority, one's paradigm changes. It's not just simply an idol, it's God. We don't assume that it's simply some stone or brass. Similarly with devotees, we don't fall into the trap of assumption. When we live in a community surrounded by devotees, we simply make assumptions by seeing. We simply make assumptions by speculating. We simply make assumptions by hearing not from authorities, but hearing some criticism from a third party. And that seems to be such nectar to the ears. Seems to be such nectar from the ears. Someone told me once, one very senior Prabhupada disciple said, if one assumes, I hate to say it, but he said in English, it's an English play on words, said if you assume, one only makes an ass out of you and me, ass you me. He said, assume, Indra and all the demigods, they were making an assumption. What was that assumption? We think that the child in the womb is a demon. And so also many times devotees feel like this. I think that this devotee doesn't like me. I think that this devotee is political. I think that this devotee is spaced out. I think that this devotee is not so serious in his Krishna consciousness. Simply by seeing, many times we can make assumptions. Here, Indra and all the demigods, they are making this assumption. Hiranyakashipu's child must be a demon after all. Must be a demon after all. But what changed their paradigm? What changed their perspective? Hearing. Hearing from Narad Muni. When they heard from a great authority and a great soul like Narad Muni, their mind changed. No longer did they see the child in the womb as a demon. Now they saw the child in the womb as the greatest Mahabhagavat. And they circumambulated. Not only did they spare Kayadu, they offered their obeisances to Narad Muni and they circumambulated Kayadu, considering the child within the womb as a great devotee. Just like by hearing from Ishvara Puri, when Lord Chaitanya came to Remuna, he could appreciate the deity of Gopinath because hearing opens one's eyes. Similarly, hearing from Narad Muni opened the eyes of Indra and the other demigods to see Prahlad for who he was and not whom they assumed. In Boston, once, a couple got off the train. They were dressed in some very ordinary clothes, not even dressed properly. They weren't together. They weren't together. Anyone who would see them would see that they weren't together. Lousily dressed, their hair was disheveled, elderly couple. They got off at the Boston station and walked to the Harvard University. They walked into the area where the president's office was, and the secretary was sitting outside. They said, "We want to see the president of Harvard University." The secretary said, looking at them, dressed so lousily, disheveled hair, not at all together, lost into oblivion, said, "Wait a minute, hang on, just wait for a while." He went into the president's office and said, "There's a, looks like a farmer couple, from the countryside, not together, lost absolutely, want to see you." Said, "Tell them I'm busy." The couple said, "We'll wait, no problem." They waited. For the whole day they waited. The second time, the secretary came and told the president of the Harvard University, "I think they're waiting for a long time. We want to see them. Finish it, ask them what it is." So, okay, send them in. So the couple came in, sat down. The president said, the dean So, can I help you with something? What do you want from me? Said, we don't want anything. We've come here to give charity. The president started laughing. He said, charity? Look at this couple, looks like they don't even have money to get a good set of clothes, and they're saying they want to give charity. They said, sir, our son was studying here at the Harvard University, and last year, in a car accident, our son died. And we have come here to donate a building as a memorial to our son. We want to donate a whole building in the name of our son. I said, donate a building? Do you know what? This is Harvard campus. Do you know what it costs to give a building? Go back, please. Leave. The couple didn't say anything. They just got off and left. And the lady asked the husband, how much does this cost to start a university? I said, university? Not much. Probably some few $1 million. So why not start our own university? And therefore they started their own university. Stanford University in America. This man and this woman were the famous industrialists. Mr. Leland Stanford and his wife. Very, very wealthy. Tremendous amount of wealth they had. But apparently this president saw them and made an assumption. Simple farmers from this countryside, what are they going to give us? If only he would have heard about them or heard from them, probably he would know who they were and wouldn't have missed on the wealth that this couple had. Similarly, many times we see devotees and we live with devotees and we assume, we take them to be ordinary. And based on that assumption, we miss on the wealth that they possess. This couple had material wealth. Devotees have tremendous spiritual wealth. The president of the Harvard University assumed that they were ordinary based on simply seeing them. Similarly, we many times assume that devotees around us are ordinary simply by seeing them, simply by seeing their activities. We come to a conclusion that they are ordinary and miss the wealth, the treasure that they have in their hearts. And thus, one cannot take devotees cheaply. And in order that devotees are not taken cheaply, one has to hear about devotees, hear about the glories of devotees, hear about the qualities of devotees, hear about the character of devotees. And thus, many times when we glorify devotees only in front of them. Only in front of them. But if we glorify devotees and talk about devotees on their back, what we are really doing is, we are opening others' hearts to see that same devotee in a different perspective altogether. Behind the back, very often we do backstabbing and criticism. Instead of doing backstabbing and criticism, if only, Jai Shri Radha Gokulan Bhagwan ki Jai. If only we glorify a devotee, we'll open the minds of that other devotee to understand the glories of another devotee. And thus, it's very, very important to give our ears to the process of Shravanam or hearing about the glories of the Lord and hearing about the glories of the devotees. If we do not, we will only take devotees to be ordinary and eventually misunderstand them and even commit offenses. It is explained that Mother Sita, she was in Ashok Vatika in Lanka. And for that one full year, Mother Sita had to go through so much pain and agony while being there, tortured by Ravana and all the demonesses around. Why? Why did she have to go through all of that? Of course, she is the spiritual potency, the Ladini Shakti, but the Acharyas have commented, we should learn from her as well, because she had misunderstood Lakshmana. She had to go through all of that trouble because she had misunderstood Lakshmana. She had thought that he had come to the forest to enjoy her, and she had spoken to Lakshmana in such a strong way. That offense, she had to pay for that. And that why did Lakshmana have to go through being misunderstood by Sita? He is Ananta Shesh. He is the Supreme Lord Ananta Shesh. He was misunderstood by Sita. Why? He had to go through all that torture and the trouble. Why? because he had also committed an offense. He's God, but we should learn from him. He had misunderstood Bharat. When Bharat had come to Chitrakoot, to take Ram away and to give the kingdom of Ayodhya to Lord Ram, Lakshman had seen Bharat from a distance and immediately misunderstood, thinking, Bharat, that fellow, is not satisfied. His mother banished you to the forest, my dear brother, and now he's coming to take you away. The mother took the throne away from you, and now he's taking your sandals away, the only possession. The padukas. He's taking it away from you. Right. He had misunderstood him. And therefore, when we misunderstand devotees, it doesn't matter whether one is Sita, whether one is Lakshmana. One has to go through the reaction. The Vaishnava Acharyas have said. They're teaching us through their example. Sita had to go through what she had to go through because she had misunderstood Lakshman. And Lakshman had to go through what he had to go through because he had misunderstood Bharat. And therefore, it is important to hear about the glories of devotees. It is important to focus on the good that the devotees have. It is important to catch the devotees doing right and not catch them doing wrong. Our mind is always focused on trying to catch them doing wrong. There is a lot good that devotees have. If only we can focus on that good and catch the devotees doing right. Hear the devotees doing right. Hear about the devotees doing good. Our perspectives change. And therefore, seeing means hearing. When we hear properly, then we can see properly. Otherwise, simply when we try to see, we are only committing offenses. When we see the deities, we think the deity as a Shila, Arche Vishnu Shiladhir. But when we hear about the glories of the deities, we think this is God. We see a devotee, Vaishnavanam Jati Buddhir. We think a devotee to be an ordinary person. But when we hear about the glories of devotees, then we appreciate devotees. Therefore, in a Vaishnava community, discussions should be about Krishna. Discussions should be about the glories of the Acharyas. Discussion should be about Srila Prabhupada and his sacrifices. And discussions should be about different devotees. When devotees come together, Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha, they take great pleasure in inspiring each other, not only talking about Krishna, not simply talking about Krishna and Guru and the Acharyas, but talking about the contemporary devotees in the community. And sometimes simple devotees go unnoticed, and they are the greatest of all Vaishnavas. And only when they leave this world, then we say, if only I could have seen him from the proper perspective, I would have taken the best of his association and inspiration, and I could have served him properly. It's so strange that when we lose something, that is when we realize the value of what we had. Till then, we don't really acknowledge and realize the value. Therefore, we should hear, regularly hear. In Vaishnava association, we should glorify different devotees, because when we hear about devotees' glories, that is what changes our vision towards them. Otherwise, we take them ordinary and apparently just spaced out or simple or not doing much. One devotee was telling me about one of the devotees in London, England. He said that this devotee was going and chanting the holy names to one family who was not even a devotee. The child was dying. I was going and chanting the holy names daily to this child in a hospital. And the family, not being devotees, they couldn't appreciate what he was doing. One day, when this devotee went, the family straight away, on the face, insulted. You just get lost. We don't want you here. We don't want you here. Just go away from here. Leave this place, And just in a couple of days, the child left his body. And the devotee, who was insulted, didn't mind. He still went for the funeral ceremony. Went and chanted in the funeral ceremony. He was insulted on the face. Get out of here. We don't want you. Just get lost. In spite of being so badly insulted, still he went for the funeral ceremony. And the family saw this and was transformed. It was a good, wealthy family. Because they saw they had done so much for the child, they wanted to give him a blank check. Take this blank check and fill in as much money as you want. You've done so much for our child, take this money. And the devotee said, money? I didn't come to your child for money. I liked your child. I came to your child simply to benefit the child. I knew the doctors had said that the child would die. I simply came to help the child live in Krishna consciousness. And so many devotees were seeing this person, ordinary, spaced out, hard to handle, And when they heard, the dimensions changed. And therefore, in a community of devotees, when we hear about other devotees, when the discussions are about the glories of devotees, then we realize they're not ordinary souls, they're special. Otherwise, when we see them as ordinary. When we hear, our perspectives change. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's decided to stay in Remuna. Mahaprahad Kshira Lobhe Rahila Prabhu Tatha Purve Ishwara Puri Tare Kahi Achen Katha. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there, stayed that night, waited for that kheer. Waited that night, the kheer will be offered and I can taste that kheer. Why? Because he had heard from Ishwara Puri the glories of Khirchor Gopinath, the glories of Remuna, and the glories of that prasadam. And therefore Bhagavat explains, Shrutekshita, opening our eyes by opening our ears. When we open our ears to hear, then our eyes open, and we do not see the deity as Shila. We do not see the spiritual master as an ordinary human being, and we do not see devotees as belonging to a caste, a community, or mortals made of flesh and blood. We take them as spiritual, and we make the most out of their association and take advantage of the opportunity to serve them. So this is the first lesson from the story of Madhavendra Puri, that when we hear, our eyes are open to reality and we can appreciate the deity, the spiritual master, and the Vaishnavas for what they are. We do not take them as ordinary stone or human being. We will continue our discussion tomorrow. It's 8:25 now. We'll continue our discussion tomorrow, where we'll learn many, many more lessons from the life of Madhavendra Puri. As he comes to Remuna, what happens to him? Many wonderful lessons of dealing with the life of sadhana bhakti can be learned from this beautiful story of Shripad Madhavendra Puri. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any comment or question anyone has? Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.